Today we're looking at these gigantic boys, Ren and Stimpy, conveniently from the Ren and Stimpy show. Now that's weird. Now these are Super 7 items, but they are taking up so much space on my desk right now that I think these are gonna be way bigger than expected. And these came from my friend Chris Hill, who was so kind to send me some more stuff to open up and look at, because a lot of us know how I feel about Super 7. It's not great, but sometimes they surprise me, and I hope that these will be a nice surprise. These are older items. This is the first version or wave or whatever release of these figures, and apparently they have made some changes since then. I think color for some of them. And Chris was also so nice as to send me some extra freebies. So check that out. Who even knew that Ren and Stimpy had a comic, let alone by Marvel, and then a nice little aliens figure. So thank you so much, Chris. Let's get into the show. So where do we start? The boxes are gonna be pretty much exactly the same, right? So let's just kind of slide Stimpy out of the way. We'll look at Ren. So we got the ages 14 and up, Super 7, top of the box, nothing on the sides. Back is just the same stuff, which we will see on the inside of the packaging as well. And of course, it's gonna be the same for Stimpy, but let's not spend too much time on the brown box, because why would we? And when Chris buys these, he generally opens the outer side of it and then looks at it without the plastic bag on it. So we are missing the plastic bag from this, but we still get the opening experience. You can see the twist ties are still around them. So the only thing that's different if you end up buying these is that they normally have a plastic bag wrapped around this section. So now we get this awesome shot. This is such a big figure. Like, what is the scale? This isn't 1/12. There's no way. He's huge. Classic Super 7 packaging is spectacular. So we got this extreme close-up of a disgusting mouth, which was very much a thing of Ren and Stimpy, and that's really my first experience with that extreme close-up detail stuff. And then we saw it in other things like SpongeBob, for example. So top of the box, Ren. Bottom of the box, some basic information, essentially what we saw on the brown portion, and on the side just some close-up gross details, some pimples and hair. Same thing on the other side. So back of the box, just a nice colorful logo. So for this one, we will hold off and look at Stimpy. So again, Stimpy just missing the plastic bag. Look at that. Which it does seem like they glide out a little bit better when that plastic's in there than it does without it. But look, he's huge. He is gigantic. I'm wondering if the eyes are the things that people complained about, and that was the reissue maybe, because those eyes are super bright. I mean, it matches that, but I don't know. It seems off. I'll put up an image from the show right here. Does it look the same? Am I dumb? So again, a close-up, extreme, gross stuff, right? All these like weird details that was just very much a thing of the Ren and Stimpy show, but we can see that there's like a huge figure in this box, and his whole faceplate changes out for him, which I guess kind of makes sense, but it's another one of those weird scenarios where like so much of that plastic could have just been another figure, right? Like you're just so close. But top of the box, Stimpy. Side of the box, just close-up gross details. Bottom of the box, same stuff we saw on the brown box, and the back of it, just a nice colorful logo. So let's open these up and see what they're all about. Okay. So already you can tell you get a lot more stuff going on here with Stimpy than you do with Ren. There's a whole section there of just nothing, which would have been a great place to potentially put the big chair, which I don't remember a whole lot about, but there was another brand, and I'm gonna put that up on the screen, but that brand released years ago, came with the chair, came with, I mean, look great. If you can still get a hold of those things, that might be a nice alternative, especially because these guys are freaking huge. But you get a better value over here with Stimpy than you do with Ren, and I wonder what's the deal with that? We're really missing some stuff out of here. Anyway, let's get the plastic pieces out. Inside here, you can see, you idiot. And here, oh joy. All right, so there we go. We've got a lot of stuff to look at because we're essentially looking at two different figures, and I believe the original retail price, because these are the older versions, were probably $45 each, and if they got a re-release, are probably sitting at $55 is my guess. But you think I would look that stuff up before I started recording? Nope. All right, so let's just do a quick overview of everything we got in the box. So we've got Ren and Stimpy, right? And we've got an extra faceplate, which, I mean, he is huge and heavy. It is a very beefy figure. Very thick, even this piece. I mean, you can kind of tell by looking at like how thick that is on the inside. Then you got these fish bones. You got, I don't remember much about this. I'm gonna guess it's like a fart cloud or a burp or something. You've got this like snot. You've got 2 extra sets of hands. You've got his litter box, which has his name on it. And then for Ren, you've got his body, his extra head, his other extra head. Oh, and then we got the litter. Of course, the litter for him. What's the story behind these things? Why are there 2 of them? I mean, like, why did they each get one? It's so important that they each needed one. Obviously, most people aren't gonna buy one without getting the other, which is another thing. Super 7, start bundling your stuff together and put them in one box. Like, come on. How are you not doing like 2 packs of these guys? But the nipples are here for whatever reason. This hat, which I do recall seeing the hat. And then, I don't know, slices of ham, I guess, because they're little pig faces. 2 extra sets of hands for him. So there's a lot of stuff, but again, we're looking at 2 different figures, but he really, let's just kind of separate that. He gets all of that. Look at how much more he's getting. I mean, obviously he's big, so he takes up more space, but this litter box, that's huge. This thing is huge, and then you just kind of get a little sad little bundle over here. But I also wouldn't care to keep, like, if this was mine, I don't care about the litter box. I don't care about the bag of litter, but of course my memory of the show, maybe this stuff is like, oh man, yeah, I'd love to have that. I can't recall. Anyway, so that's a little overview. Let's jump into details. So we'll start here with Stimpy. And again, I'm not 100% on that yellow. It seems super bright, but maybe it is accurate. But I recall that there was oh, maybe it's his body color. Look at that. Look at how, that's just like an off-white, and this looks like my skin. So maybe that's what it was. But anyway, so the details, there's not a whole lot to talk about with details of stuff like this because we're pulling it right from an animation. But they are including things like nostrils. The roof of the mouth is there. There is some detail around the teeth, of course, and the tongue that's in there. Look at the ears. So, yeah, you know, a lot of seams and stuff, which, you know, is expected, especially for something this large, I guess. But there you go. You got some butt cheeks. Got the bottom of the feet. What's this say here? Vicom 2020 Super 7, made in China. But, you know, there's not a whole lot. Again, the details with this kind of stuff, there's not much we can talk about, but it's just very obvious of all the seams. It feels like a normal toy you would get, but supersized. Like, if you got one that was about this big, you'd be like, oh yeah. You know, it feels like that kind of plastic. Something about this plastic. It's heavy, which helps it not feel cheap, but there's something about this plastic that feels a little cheap. Anyway, so we got the fish bones. So some good sculpting. I mean, it's generally a good thing with Super 7 is that the sculpting is great. They've hired some good teams to do that kind of stuff, but onto the whatever cloud, a stink cloud of some sort. But some good paint work going around the mouth and the eyes. It's simple. It's kind of somewhat translucent. Transparent, I should know that word. And then we've got the alternate face, which again, that's just what it looks like on the inside. And then the tongue looking nice, the eyes, the nose, pretty simple. We've got the snot or whatever this thing is. We have the cat litter bag, which is hefty. It looks good, I guess. It's like, what can you really say about this stuff? The nipple thing, which, you know, you can kind of bend it a little bit. I don't remember the point of this. The extra hands. So here we go. We got these open hands. We've got these kind of flat out spread hands, whatever the point is of those. And then of course he had gripping hands on by default. And then the cat litter box, which has a nice texture to it, and it's clearly meant for him to stand in as it came that way in the box, but you know, it's indented already. And then Ren over here, So great sculpt. I mean, it's very much reminiscent of the animation and his like extreme chihuahua features, just looking weird and creepy. As far as any other details, nothing really. I mean, it's simple. His butt cheeks there as well. It does seem odd now that I guess they didn't have tails in the animation. They don't have tails in here either. So they actually, you know, these are painted up pretty well, which is nice to see. You know, all these, the base is generally just the plastic color is, you know, that's how you get this tone or whatever. But this older stuff, it's a little harder to tell. It's not so clear that it's plasticky, you know, it just doesn't have a plastic appeal to it, like with I'm always going to say the Robin Hood figure and everything they're doing with that Disney line, which has a gloss finish. This has this matte finish, so it looks good. That makes a huge noticeable difference, because then you can put gloss where it needs to be. Then this face, which is very simple, just bug-eyed, kind of smiling, no teeth showing, ears up, and I think this would be the winner, right? This you'd put on there all the time. Anyway, the alternate hands, super simple with those, just kind of flat, closed, and then open, kind of flat, open hands, and then you have his fists, just mirror of each other, very simple. Then again, another nipple, like a bottle cap nipple thing. What's the point of that? I'm gonna say nipple so many times, YouTube's gonna be like, should we flag this? Then you've got his hat, which we'll see how that goes on his head, because it doesn't seem to have any particular safe way to keep it on, which will be a little bit of a concern. Maybe they don't intend you to put it on. And then the plate of ham or whatever. I mean, that has to be ham, right? Like, just knowing how Ren and Stimpy was and how weird everything was, like the snot has a face. This was probably a literal thing, right? Like they would slice it, because Ren and Stimpy was just creepy. Very, very weird show. All right, so those are the details. Let's look at articulation. So starting with him, there's really nothing, right? Nothing with the head. You can't do anything in that sense. You just got some arms, which will spin all the way around. And then they have this hinge here in the armpit, which will go to like just a full T pose. And then you can rotate them, and that's it. Then you got the wrist, and we're done. It just spins. There's no other articulation. So that is a huge turd. His face, which that's what he looks like on the inside. So the kind of grooves in there to help keep things locked in. So let's just swap that out while we're here. But I think, you know, all this extra stuff for Stimpy, but I'd rather just have alternate faces. That doesn't seem to want to line up properly at all. I think because of this kind of bent inwards right here, where it's flat on the other side. This is probably going to be an issue. But you can see this side is a bit more flat, and this one is warped. I mean, it's almost incredibly obvious, especially when that shadow hits, right? But articulation, the legs, they just kind of have a swivel. That's it. And then you get the ankle, which is a little more traditional. So you got this kind of, that's all the way down and then all the way up. And then you have this kind of rotation. So, I mean, you're not going to get much out of this. The posing stage is going to be basically, I don't even know if I should do it with this set of figures. These are almost statues, especially with the faces. Ren, what does he got? So nothing in the upper half, like in the head, but he does have neck articulation, which will allow it to spin all the way around. And then can we look down a little bit, up a bit? So there's a decent range between up and down. And then you have this kind of tilts a little bit you can get out of there. So not too bad. It's just a simple ball joint. Look at that. How basic. Let's swap his head out. We'll just go with the simple one for now. Some imperfections I just noticed. A bummer. All right, so the head was really tight now, but the arms, they spin around. He also has like some shoulder hinges, so you can get a T pose, a little bit above, straight out. Obviously you can rotate it there, and then the wrist, which is just going to spin, and that's it. So super simple as far as articulation goes. The legs, so he can get some splits. So he's got quite a bit more in the leg range, but nothing at the ankles. And with these sculpts, I mean, yeah, I don't know how much you could get out of these with their build, right? To keep them realistically looking like the animation, the cartoon, those drawings and stuff. So they do have a great look compared to the drawings, but you're limited. You really cannot do anything, and I don't know at what point do you give that up, right? Do you just alter that to get more hinges? I don't know. I think somebody could certainly make that happen. But that's it. Articulation's over. It's just like, okay, what was the point of that? So I guess let's get on to posing. All right, so there we go with Ren and Stimpy. Man, what is there to say? Let's just jump into rating these figures. So when it comes to details, there are some imperfections. They do look like the animation. Apparently there's some color concerns for the first wave, but they've fixed it. So we'll give them a little extra bonus points. But all the seams and everything is just so obvious, and you can't really use any of the accessories, right? Like they just don't really hold the stuff that they come with. So when it comes to details, we'll give them a 4 out of 5, which brings us to articulation. And articulation is pretty much laughable. There's no point in the articulation because it's so non-existent, really. We'll give them a 1 out of 5 on articulation, which brings us to posing. And man, you really want to have fun with these two, and you just can't. You can't. There just isn't a scenario where you can really set these things up to be fun. They're just gonna be huge figures that take up so much space on your shelf because the scale, I don't know what that is, 1/9 maybe? One something, 1/6? Probably not, but they are huge. And so the posing is incredibly limited because of the articulation and because the accessories don't really work with them. They don't hold or do anything with them. So with posing, I'm gonna give them a 2 out of 5. So those are the scores and the overall rating. So what do you think? Is that fair? Am I a little harsh? I mean, there are some Super 7 items that I actually gave some nice ratings to, like the Thundercats line was actually pretty good so far, but this, man, is it worth the price? We're gonna assume again that it was $45 when they came out, which was $45 each. No, I mean, that's a lot of plastic, so you're paying for a lot of plastic. And again, with Super 7, you always are paying for like a premium package, which I will hand it to the package designers. Fantastic work. You should be proud of yourselves. It's always awesome. The figures though, they don't hold enough weight to be worth that price. You can say $90 for these two to just sit there and take up so much space. You should just invest into some other stuff. Look up that other brand of these that I had mentioned at the beginning of the show, which was this one. Because I don't remember what the brand was, but they're smaller obviously, which is I think fine. You can deal with smaller stuff for these guys. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much you could fix these concerns, but it's just not worth it. They're not great. They're just nearly statues, which, you know, when you limit the articulation on something like that, then they just feel like cheaper toys, right? I mean, you pay premium prices to get premium action out of them, and you're just not getting it. You can barely hold that. The hat doesn't really work. I mean, it's just gonna take nothing to knock that thing off of his head, and it never really sits just right. This is like the best I can get it was with this head, and he just doesn't do anything. This is a huge disappointment for a line that looks so great, but you know, they seem to be the kings of that over at Super 7, unfortunately. I really want to love this brand. I say that all the time and then I dunk on them, but they're doing the SpongeBob line, which looks like it could be awesome, but they made Patrick Star with a ton of articulation. Of course, those are just renders. We don't know what they would actually be like. That's kind of the extreme opposite, right? The brand doesn't like to do so many joints because they think it ruins the sculpt, and Patrick kind of ruins his sculpt. These guys have no articulation, and it didn't ruin the sculpt, I guess, right? So, Chris, I'm sorry, man. When I'm gonna send these things back to you, maybe just keep them in the box. But if you want to see more Super 7 stuff, then I do recommend watching this one because I actually was happy with it. crazy. See you next time.